All right, everybody. I should be live, but there's a lot of questions involving whether or not that's true. So maybe you can let me know in the chat if you can hear me and see me. And if you can, I think we can get started because tonight we're talking about, the Tesla war, the ICE war, the SWAT war. You might wonder, what wars are you talking about? Well, we're talking about how a lot is happening here domestically involving all three of those different actions that I want to bring to your attention because these are threats and they do increase the risk of you encountering some sort of detrimental action in your daily life, and you should be aware of it as an American. Of course, if you're not from America, if you're one of our good Canadian friends, like we have Lone Wolf here tonight, and we have other great people from other great countries as well, you can apply some of this logic to your life most likely because a lot of it has spillover. So, good to see everybody. We have the 5x5s rolling in from David Baise. We have Mr. Landfill, Colonel Greaseberg McQueen with the 5x5.56, which I really appreciate. We also have Dave Sickles. Good evening to you as well. Heartgold 556, good to see you with the 556 by 223. So when we do microphone and audio and visual checks based on calibers, it makes me happy. So I appreciate you all doing that. We also have USA Prepping with the 55, and I think we are rolling. So a lot of good things to discuss tonight, and there are some other interesting aspects of these stories that you might not be aware of, which we're going to dive into, but I think that it's all relevant because it's affecting people here in the country directly, and it is something that has a propensity to become bigger. So we should be paying attention to it and just kind of understand the threat profile, especially in our local areas. And if you are directly involved in this, maybe, for example, you drive a Tesla or you work near a Tesla dealership or whatever it might be, like this could affect you directly just from being that close to the situation. Proximity is always a problem, right? So let's get started. DJ Touchstone says, did you dye your hair? And the answer is no. This is just how my hair grows. And I know it looks really cool like an anime character, but you know what? It's natural. So it worked out well. And everyone here in the chat can tell you that's the truth because they've been here for a long time and they know that this is a conversation that comes up quite often. So let's get going. So first off, we have the Attorney General talking about these Tesla attacks becoming domestic terrorism. And 3 attacks specifically were actually labeled as domestic terrorism according to Attorney General Pam Bondi. So Attorney General Pam Bondi has announced charges against 3 individuals accused of attacking Tesla properties in separate incidents across the United States. These Tesla attacks have been labeled as domestic terrorism by Bondi due to their violent nature and apparent political motivations. And when you see these attacks occurring, you should be aware of the fact that, yes, this does fit the profile of terrorism, which is to basically incite terror upon a group of people in order to promote your political ideology. So that's what we're seeing here right now. The suspects, Adam Matthew Lansky, Lucy Grace Nelson, and Daniel Clark Pounder, are alleged to have used weapons and explosives in their attacks on Tesla cars and charging stations in Oregon, Colorado, and South Carolina, respectively. The charges include unlawful possession of firearms, malicious destruction of property, and arson, with potential penalties of up to 20 years in prison. So, these attacks are reportedly linked to opposition against Elon Musk's role in the Trump administration, particularly his involvement in the federal bureaucratic restructuring efforts. Messages opposing President Trump and the Department of Government Efficiency were found at the scenes of some of the attacks. This is where we're at right now. This is why tonight's thumbnail said Tesla War, right? And that's why the title of tonight's live stream is Tesla Illegal Swatting War Begins, because, well, all 3 of those things have their own unique stories we're going to go over tonight, and all 3 of them are things that are relevant to your personal safety, so you should be aware of them. But regardless, we are now seeing direct kinetic action being taken against a company and anyone who might be a customer of that company solely based on political affiliation, which is what many would consider terrorism. So that's actually why I started the poll tonight. If you want to be part of that, please feel free to join in. So far, we only have 145 votes, but the poll is saying which one represents domestic terrorism more clearly. And right now, we have 48% saying that Tesla's being firebombed. Then we have 5% saying J6. We have 43% saying BLM riots, and we have 4% saying Bud Light boycott. Now, obviously, there's going to be a political skew to this or bias based on the general overtone of the preparedness genre, right? Most of us here generally lean more conservative just because of everything else related to preparedness, self-reliance, firearms enthusiasm, and everything else, right? But regardless, we have a very diverse audience here of people who want to just be prepared regardless of political affiliation, and you can kind of see how those scores are skewed in that regard. So very interesting, but I always like to hear people's input because I'm not right about everything, but personally I find this to be very clearly domestic terrorism, more so than the other options, and even the BLM riots, which I totally understand the feeling and thought process there. My differentiation there between those and what's happening to Teslas right now is that the riots were in a public domain that were solely intended to create destruction and chaos, right? Whereas the Tesla thing is supposed to scare people from participating with that company as being customers or consumers or having any affiliations. And so there's a little bit of a different motive, but they do have a similar outcome. So I totally understand where that's coming from, and I just wanted to touch base on that really quick, okay? The Smoke says, LOL, the Bud Light boycott was terrorism, LOL. Well, but I'm just trying to use a similar example as to when like a company was specifically targeted by a political affiliated group or organization and how it affected them directly, and maybe show some of the overtones or differences of the strategies used there within. So let's keep moving into the Tesla war before we jump into the ICE war, which is going to be another thing. It sounds like I'm writing Game of Thrones at this point in time, but I'm not, because I actually finished my work and George R.R. Martin doesn't. So by the way, I think he's lazy and I don't like him, because you should finish what you start, right? I'm sorry, just my 2 cents. Now, unless you want HBO to write your ending for you and do a bad job at it, here we have something that happened today. Of course, if you're new here, we generally go over news from the previous week. If we go back further in history, it's to build context about things that are happening, to give you a better idea as, what you should expect or what you should know about it in order to develop a more educated opinion. But at the same time, if you're also here on Replay Crew, you guys need to check in the comments, because I really appreciate you all, and you're amazing for always coming back here and listening to this information. Incendiary devices found at Texas Tesla dealership amid growing protests. Trump administration has pledged to crack down on vandalism and protests against Elon Musk's car company. Now, that does sound like favoritism, doesn't it? However, it's just clearly, like we said, terrorism that's happening, regardless of how you want to look at it and regardless of how you feel about what's happening. If you wanted to boycott Tesla, or if you wanted to protest them even, that's fine. But once it moves into the realm of violence, and once it moves into the realm of destruction of property and things of that nature, then you start moving into a different category of crime, which is terrorism, right? So because the goal here is to stop people from participating. Police in Texas said they found incendiary devices at a Tesla dealership in Austin on Monday morning, as the Trump administration has pledged to crack down on vandalism and protests against Elon Musk's car company. On Monday, March 24th, 2025, at approximately 8:04 a.m., Austin Police Department officers responded to a found abandoned hazardous call at the Tesla dealership located at 12845 North US 183 Highway, SVRDNB. I don't know how Texas names their roads or their highways or anything, but I have a feeling it's not very user-friendly. Austin Police Department said in a statement shared with CBS Austin. I can only imagine your GPS there basically trying to tell you where to take the next turn, and it takes so long to say it that you miss your turn. That's just what it seems like would happen to me. When officers arrived on the scene, they located suspicious devices and called the APD bomb squad to investigate. The devices, which were determined to be incendiary, were taken into police custody without incident. This is an open and ongoing investigation, and there is no further information available for release at this time. So I have a feeling if they find the people who are responsible for this and actually arrest them, that there's a good chance they might end up getting charged with terrorism, because that's what the intended purpose most likely was here, especially when you're using things like incendiary devices. Okay. Tesla dealerships and charging stations have been vandalized in recent weeks as anger against Musk's unprecedented influence over the U.S. government has spilled over. A man threw flaming beer bottles at a Tesla charging station in South Carolina in early March, setting both the charging station and himself on fire, and a total of nearly 20 Tesla showrooms and charging stations have seen deliberate fires set since Donald Trump took office. Arson is not cool. I think we should have learned that lesson from all the wildfires that we recently survived here in this country and around other parts of the world, but I guess we're just not going to learn our lesson there. Thousands of people have participated in peaceful protests outside of Tesla dealerships across the country. At one demonstration outside a Tesla dealership in West Palm Beach, Florida, near Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort, a 44-year-old man was accused of trying to intentionally drive a Nissan SUV into a group of protesters. He then allegedly got out of his vehicle and told workers at the dealership in question that he stands with Tesla and left. Now, I don't know if that's actually what happened, but I am going to show you that story next because I find it to be interesting, not as necessarily a counterpoint to what's happening, but as a result, as the expected backlash and possibly what they're baiting for someone to do in order to further their agenda. And we're going to actually apply the rules of terrorism to this concept because that strategy is something that's used by terrorist organizations around the world, and guess what? It's very effective. So I'm going to explain that to you here in just a second, but I want to jump in the chat. We have Derek saying arson is a deadly threat, and I completely agree with you. Of course, if someone throws a Molotov cocktail your way, I'm pretty sure you can respond with deadly force, but, it depends on what state you're in. I'm sure somewhere like California might figure out a very interesting way to determine that you weren't actually acting in self-defense. Mark Gamlin. But it was funny as hell when Trump's minions were doing it to the lieutenant governor of Georgia. Right. So I don't even know what it is you're specifically referring to there, but maybe you can elaborate in the chat. We have Nasara coming in saying salute with a heart, and I appreciate that. And then we have the original Osak saying I'm in a state of grace. So we have great people in the chat. I always like to interact with you guys, and I'm trying my best to do it more often throughout these conversations. So it's not just me just rambling on for time on end, because I understand that maybe that could be a little bit absurd, right? It's like being at church and the sermon goes for an hour and a half when the service was only supposed to last 1 hour. That can be a little bit frustrating. So let's keep going. Now, I will talk about this person who decided to take matters into their own hands. Now, here's my take on this story, and I just want you to be aware of it, okay? It doesn't sound like he necessarily had deadly intent based on what his actions were reported to be. However, what he did was still wrong, and he still should have been arrested, and he still needs to understand that this was a terrible idea. So, bad idea all around, not on this person's side at all. This is not how you handle these things. But this is also what happens when these things start to occur and emotions get high and people get upset. And at a certain point, you start to realize that this might be part of the intended plan. Okay, so let's keep moving forward here. Florida man arrested after driving car into protesters at Tesla dealership. Police, okay? This is from today. A Florida man was arrested after driving a car into a group of protesters at a dealership during a protest. The suspect, 44-year-old Andrew Dutil, drove his vehicle, jumping the curb onto the sidewalk at a slow rate of speed into a crowd of protesters on Saturday, police said in a statement. Police received numerous calls regarding a black Nissan SUV driving up on a curb in front of the Tesla dealership, almost striking multiple pedestrians, according to police. The protesters moved out of the way to avoid being struck by Dutil's vehicle, police said. I don't know if it's Duddle or Doodle, but we're going to just go with it. When police arrived on the scene, Doodle's car was parked on the curb in front of the dealership with multiple people surrounding it, authorities said. Doodle was arrested and transported to the Palm Beach County Jail without incident. There were no reported injuries among the protesters. Karen Holland, who was participating in the peaceful protest, told police that Doodle's vehicle drove by earlier in the day and was yelling at all of the protesters. When Doodle returned and started driving up on the curb toward the protesters, Holland said she was in fear for her life and believed she was going to get struck by the vehicle. Doodle was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon without intent to kill. And that's the whole thing here, without intent. Because he jumped the curb slowly and didn't hit anybody, which we know, unfortunately, from other previous terrorist attacks, like what we saw on January 1st of this year in New Orleans, that vehicles can do a lot of damage very quickly, and if they're utilized in that manner, it's going to be very destructive. So I understand why the without intent part was added into this charge. However, this person was goaded into this. Like, this is how this works, right? This is the game. So now you have these people getting what they want. They want to rile people up, raise their emotions, get them to react in a very emotional way, and now they can point the finger and say, see how unhinged these people are, and this is why they're crazy, and this is why we need to keep doing what we're doing because it's working. And in the meantime, they're going to wait till somebody else jumps the curb, but in a much more aggressive way, and now it's going to become a martyr situation for everybody else around the country to go out and be more activated. And since these protests which I went over last week in the live stream, so I think you are probably aware of this. But since they're not organic and they're well funded and well organized by a lot of these shadowy groups that exist from other countries, there's a good chance that this is well within the strategy. Like, this is a good sign for them. They see this happen. They said, yeah, we're almost there. We almost got one of them. We need to get one that's actually going to do the thing, and then we can really mobilize. And it's going to be much easier for them to promote and justify this behavior within their organization because, well, somebody got hurt, and now we know we need to keep going even harder, right? So this is, to me, like exactly what it is they're trying to accomplish. And it's very unfortunate that this person fell into that trap. And yes, eventually, if you do this kind of stuff, you're asking for some sort of backlash. But how you come through with that backlash is going to have major implications and consequences on how things can move forward and progress. So, just so you're aware as well, like there's been a lot of issues happening. And even here in my state of North Dakota, which is very, low population and doesn't have a lot of this stuff usually going on. But Fargo, a couple years ago, had a terror incident, and now we have this. Another recent Tesla incident occurred in Fargo, North Dakota, where fire crews found a small fire in wood chips at the base of an electric vehicle charger in the parking lot early Friday morning, according to the Fargo Fire Department. Officials said the fire is considered suspicious and that the cause is under investigation. It is unclear whether the fire damaged the chargers, authorities said. Like, this is happening everywhere, even in freaking North Dakota, which, not much happens here. So, if you drive a Tesla, if you go to a Tesla dealership, if you are involved with their company, maybe you work a job that just affiliates with Tesla, like you're a detailer or you're a window tinter or whatever it is you might be, you need to be on high alert and understand that the risk level for you right now regarding personal security is through the roof. So make necessary changes, make necessary preparations, and just understand that this is an uncertain time for that. And unfortunately, if I were to say, I would get rid of my Tesla, or I just wouldn't, participate in that, or I would quit my job, or whatever it might be, then those people are winning. Then the terrorism is actually accomplishing its goal, which is getting people to, disinvest from this company. And that's not okay. So, uninvest would be a real word, I guess. So, but regardless, like that, it's a very difficult predicament to be in. And I have friends that have Teslas. Like, I have friends that are not right-wing conservatives that have Teslas, and I'm worried about them because, they clearly are possibly going to be targeted by some unhinged individual. And so I know that they are doing what they can to be ready for that and just are understanding of the situation, and they're monitoring it, of course. But it's still concerning. But at the same time, like, if they go and get rid of their Teslas, like, what have they done? They've bowed down to the mob, and now we're in a worse situation. So I just don't know how to really approach it other than to say, just be prepared, be smart, be situationally aware. And if I were you right now, I just wouldn't go places I didn't need to go. I wouldn't go sightseeing with my Tesla right now in an unknown area or an unknown neighborhood where I'm not sure how people feel about it, right? That's just the approach I would personally take. But regardless, I shouldn't have to even think about that, right? We shouldn't have to consider it, but here we are. So it's very unfortunate. Original sock, divest is not the right word either, because that's more about losing. You might be right. It could be divest. We're just going to go with it. Let's see here. Just Brian says, thank you, Magic Pepper, for all you do. I appreciate you keeping us informed. Well, I appreciate you being here to get this information and for supporting the channel. So that's always going to be beneficial for me. So it makes it so I have to provide you with something beneficial as well. And here we are at a fair exchange, I would assume. We also have other good people in here. Tom McStacker says, howdy peeps, good to see you as well. And then we also have Silent Guard, but during COVID, they permitted CDL drivers to hit and run just for their safety. Yeah, well, during COVID, a lot of things happened. Ewok Jerky also says divest. So I was right. You know why I couldn't think of the word? Not that I was right. I was wrong, but I was right that I was wrong. You see how this works? I'm working on becoming a politician. So what I just did is kind of my tryout. It's almost like my resume, and I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job. But what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of other words that I was trying to think of in my head that didn't line up, and then it led me down the wrong path. So I appreciate everybody helping me out there. Now, what up, JD? Good to see you. Anton wears a kilt. I hate EV cars, yet I really want a Cybertruck wrapped in the USA flag. Well, and I understand that. And I know why people are feeling that way right now. And there is something to be said about that, because right now, I will say that one thing that has happened is that Tesla has actually started to gain traction back in the stock market. Now, I find this to be interesting because it's not just about Tesla, but it is a good story to kind of remind you of how these things work. So many people are appalled by what's going on is that they're now adding additional support to this company. And the stocks have surged 12% after going really low last week. And what's interesting about it is that it's also because Trump is considering holding off on additional levies on automakers that were supposed to take place on April 2nd. So actually Ford, Honda, General Motors, all these other companies are also up right now, but they're up like 1 to 3%. Whereas Tesla is up 12%. So I think there's more than just those levies being held back, helping Tesla move forward. I think that there are a lot of people on the ground in a grassroots effort right now trying to show support because they just aren't happy with what they're seeing going on right now. And I can understand that, okay? And there's not really much to this story other than what I just told you. So I don't think it's like a big deal to go through all the information, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention because it's, I think, indicative of the way people are feeling about it, right? And I think that kind of goes along the lines of what was just said, right? Like Anton Wears a Kilt just said, like, I don't even like electric vehicles, but now I want a Cybertruck. And a lot of people feel that same sentiment, okay? David Baese says politics. Not truly, okay? Unless that calling happens and it's like something from like, it's like straight up divine and God comes down and is like, you're going to run for politics because like you don't ever shut up and I think you'll do the right thing. And I'd be like, all right, well, you said so I have to. But I haven't had that calling yet, so I don't think that's going to happen. But you never know. Could happen, okay? Now, catalytic convert is magic, says Patriot 8x2. And I don't know exactly what that means or is a reference to, but I'm okay with it. I like it. Oil renewable energy admitted. Listen. I live in the oil field. I live in North Dakota. I want oil to be booming. I want energy to be booming. I want us to drill. I want us to have American energy independence. And I want all the workers out here to be making buku dollars and everybody to be able to support their families and really just bring it home, right? So like I'm good with oil and everything else. I can see the future being more dependent on things like electric vehicles and whatnot, but I also know that then the resources have to exist for that to be a reality. And currently we still need oil, even if it just comes to all the other products, right? Like people, it's so crazy how people don't realize like the clothes you're wearing right now probably are made from oil to some degree, as long as they have polyester in them, right? And like everything is made from oil, like all the plastic, every component in your computer, the phone you're holding in your hand right now. So like we still need it, even if we get away from it in the sense of using it for energy, well, we're going to always need it for everything else. So you got to just go through it. Viv B, the violent crazies are in minority. They just get a lot of news coverage. I 100% agree with you on that, Viv B, and that's the unfortunate side effect, right? It creates more division, it creates more vitriol, and it makes people more questioning or more skeptical of each other based off political ideology, even if there's not as much of a reason to be. And this is also part of the goal, and that's why these protests are organized by these larger schemes, because they want that. They want us to distrust each other. They don't want us to actually be able to come together and realize, like, you know, there's more to this. But I agree with you, Viv B. There's a lot of people out there who might hate Elon Musk, might hate Doge, might hate everything happening in the country right now, that would have 0% chance of going out and lighting a Tesla on fire, right? So like I agree with you on that 100%. So let's see here. Neuromonic says I will stick to my old Chevy. I'm looking forward to getting an old Chevy at some point in time here in the future because that's kind of on the list. We got the minivan for the family, and it's pretty dope. I'm not going to lie. I've always liked vans. I'm a van guy. I drove vans for years. I was in a band. We needed a van. I drove it, right? But at the same time, I want that Chevy. So real quick, I do want to mention that I actually have started a new endeavor, and I want you guys to consider being part of it if it's something that you might feel would help you out. I am working on a training program that is called Profitable Preparedness. And if you're interested in it, you can look it up on my website or you can find it in the description below. And I'm also going to put a link to it in the live chat right now because it's a way where you will learn how to do what I do. So if you want to do what I do and you want to make money while getting better prepared and also talk about preparedness related things, firearms, prepping, everything else related to that, anything self-reliance related, then this course might be for you. And I put it together because I realized that one of the best things I could share with other people in the sense of training and learning is how to do what I do, because without doing this, I wouldn't be as prepared as I currently am. In fact, it allowed me to have the income required to move forward in my preparations while also getting me away from having to work a corporate gig that was going to isolate my time and basically remove my ability to spend any time with my family. So if that's something you might be interested in, make sure you check it out. And I'll go ahead and actually pull it up really quick just so you guys can see that it's a real thing. But I have spent a lot of time on this course. It's going to be a 6-week live course where once a week for 6 weeks straight, I'm going to come live with you, go through a different module that has multiple lessons in it. There's 27 lessons in total, and it will get you from point A to point B. If you want to run a YouTube channel or any other social media entity, and you want to do it with guns or prepping or self-reliance or homesteading or anything like that in mind, and I'm going to teach you what I've learned, all my mistakes, and I'm going to walk you through it step by step because I'm first and foremost a businessman. Secondly, I've been a manager in a corporate entity for many, many years. And this is what I do best. And I realized a while ago that this was probably what I could offer the community that would be more beneficial than anything else. I could put together a manual on how to start fires, in a wilderness survival situation, but you can find someone like Dave Canterbury to teach you that much better. But this is something that I do, and I have proof that I do, and I'm going to do it. So if you're interested in this, make sure you guys check it out. I would really appreciate the support. And honestly, right now, if you join before the course starts, it begins April 19th. And you get a 10% discount if you start soon. And right now it's $177. So, and honestly, after reviewing everything and going through the entire criteria and the entire module, I realized that I'm undercharging. But you know what? I've already set the price. It is what it is. I'm trying to keep the barrier to entry relatively low. And then once you enter, you'll have access to the course unlimitedly, even after the live sessions are over, and everything will be recorded and uploaded directly to it. So you can always reference it and learn to do what I do. So if that's something you want to do, this is something I'm doing now, and I hope you guys are willing to support it and get involved because what I'm doing right now has changed my life 100%. And if I can share that with somebody and they're invested in the idea of doing it and they want to move forward and spend the time and the energy and the resources to accomplish that, then I want to help them out with that. So make sure you guys check that out. I would really appreciate it. And I'm doing the best I can to provide something of value to the community that is very niche. You can learn how to run a YouTube channel from anybody, but they will not understand how to get a video monetized that you're talking about AR-15s in. But I do. And that's going to be a huge difference. Not to mention, I understand the sponsorship aspect, and I understand the affiliate aspect, and I understand what you got to do. So hopefully that might help some of you out. And it is something that I'm very proud of. So let's see how it goes. Now, and don't worry, I have actual real products coming out as well. And the first one is being in prototyping and R&D right now, and it's made in the USA, and it's going to be super cool. And I think you guys are going to like it, but I can't reveal anything yet because we have to make some slight modifications. But once it's ready, I'm stoked about it. Okay, so here we are, doing what I can here. Let's talk about the illegal war now. Oh wait, the ice war. Why did I say illegal? That's not what I meant to say at all. Anyway, oh, by the way, thumbs up if you want to do that because I'm supposed to say these things. Oh, and hit the subscribe button too because I'm going to teach people how to run a YouTube channel and I can't even do the thing that I'm supposed to do. All right. I will get things moving here. And Anthony Petracca wants a Chevy trucks and he wants a regime change Toyota with a mount in the bed. I get that totally. You know what though? I've got a regime change Toyota Sienna. You know what's cool about that? Sliding doors. I could still have a mount inside and you won't even know it till it's too late. You ever seen the Jackal? Yeah. Anyway, it's probably the best car for my Draco. I should probably just keep that as my van gun. It's not a truck gun, it's a van gun. Why? Because it's a Draco. Okay, ICE war. Obviously, they're out there arresting migrants who are committing crimes, people who are here illegally that are committing crimes. But some of the states are putting your safety in jeopardy based on their policies and based on what it is they're willing to do to you or willing to let happen to you, all for political points, right? And it's sick and it's really effed up, in all honesty. And I'm really upset about it because like these crimes to me, as a father, these crimes to me should be like immediate destruction of everything, right? And instead, we're what? Literally letting people out who have done the worst atrocities you can imagine with no bail. These people hate you and they don't care about you, your family, or your security, or your life, or anything. And it's becoming very apparent that I think they might need to They need to go. And I hope they get prosecuted and imprisoned for being accomplices in these crimes because that's what they are at this point. I don't care how else you want to look at it. It's sick. And you can be upset about the deportations or the aspect of illegal immigration and everything else about that if that's not what jives with your ideology. That's your opinion, and I'm fine with that. But if you're upset that these people are being if you're not upset that these people are being let out of jail, then you are fooling yourself. You're lying to yourself at this point, and you need to really self-reflect on like your values because it's ridiculous, right? So let's go ahead and if you don't agree with me or you think I'm probably wrong about that, why don't you listen so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Homan blasts blue status. Report shows it's releasing illegals charged with horrific crimes on low bails. Okay. Tom Homan says Massachusetts Democrats should be ashamed and that despite their actions, deporting criminal illegals will be done. Following a Massachusetts law barring law enforcement cooperation with ICE, illegal child assaulters, because words are dumb on this platform sometimes, and other serious criminal illegals charged with horrific crimes are being released on the streets on bail as low as $500, and in some cases, no bail at all. Responding to these releases, Tom Homan, President Donald Trump's border czar, said that the Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey and Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, both Democrats, should be ashamed, and that despite their actions, deporting criminal illegals will be done. Healey was previously said that Massachusetts is not a sanctuary state. However, a 2017 ruling by the Massachusetts Supreme Court, Lund v. Commonwealth, bars local and state law enforcement from coordinating with ICE to assist with deportation operations. The ruling stipulates that law enforcement cannot comply with ICE detainers, forcing agencies to release criminal migrants onto the streets, which is ridiculous. Last week, Wu renewed her pledge to resist Trump's deportation efforts, saying, "We stand with immigrants, and no one tells Boston how to take care of our own. Not kings and not presidents who think they are kings." Well, here's how they take care of their own. And this is why you should be pissed off about it, because this is wrong. And it makes me very angry. So, here you go, okay? However, at least 7 illegal immigrants charged with serious crimes, including child assault and fentanyl trafficking, were released by local law enforcement agencies in Massachusetts in recent months. The outlet reported that in one instance, a 39-year-old Honduran national named Juan Alberto Redesno Marin, who was charged with indecent assault and battery on a person over 14, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, masked armed robbery, and assault to sexually assault, was released on his own recognizance without having to pay bail at all. According to an ICE statement, immigration officials had previously arrested and removed Redesno Marin twice for illegally re-entering the U.S. in 2008 and 2009. Despite these crimes and an ICE detainer being filed against him, the Middlesex Superior Court released Redesno Marin in December. He was not arrested by ICE until a month later. He is currently in ICE custody. Meanwhile, ABC reported the Worcester County Jail released 2 illegal immigrant inmates charged with child assault on bail of just $500. Another illegal immigrant, Jose Fernando Perez, a 49-year-old Guatemalan national, charged with 3 counts of forcible assault of a child and 3 counts of assault of a child, was released in 2022 on $7,500 bail with just an order to stay in his home. Fernando Perez was finally arrested by ICE on February 2nd of this year. Okay? This is not okay. I don't care who you are. Not okay. And honestly, like I'm sorry, but I feel like more people should be in jail because of these people being let out for like $500. I would expect parents of these children to possibly be in jail now because there's a good chance I would be. But I don't know what the deal is in Boston and in Massachusetts and everything else, but like this is not okay. And anyone who thinks that this is okay, to let someone out who has assaulted multiple children in that way, and to let them out on $7,500, and then the only thing that happens to them is they have to stay in their house. Like, that person deserves much worse. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you think. They do. And this is wrong. This is wrong, okay? At the time, Patricia Hyde, ICE Enforcement and Removal Operations Boston Acting Field Office Director, said Fernando Perez's horrific crimes against a minor in our Commonwealth made him exactly the type of alien we are targeting with our worst first policy. In northeastern Massachusetts, the Lawrence District Court released another Honduran national, 19-year-old Stevenson Omar Perez Ajlan, on $7,500 bail despite pending charges of SA of a child with a 10-year age difference, aka a 9-year-old. CBS reported that 2 other inmates charged with cocaine and fentanyl trafficking were released with bail amounts of $500 and $4,000. I would go to jail for putting a stock on an AR pistol for like 20 years, right? Or what's the minimum? 10 years? With like a maximum fine of like $100,000, right? And the only difference between what I did was I owned something legally and I owned another thing legally, and I put them together. And now I go to prison. And they would do that to me in a heartbeat. But these people are literally doing the worst thing imaginable to children, and they're being let out for $500 or for no money at all, or for $7,500, and being told to stay in their house. Like, they're not even staying in jail, they're staying in their house. So, in case any other kids come around, maybe it can happen again. Like, these people don't care about your family, they don't care about you, they don't care about anyone. And the fact that they're willing to let these people out that have done these crimes, I don't care. The fact that they're illegal doesn't even matter to me at this point. Like, I don't care what your immigration status is. You do this to children, and you do this at all to other people, regardless of age. Like, you don't get to just go stay home and pay $500. Like, that's out of control. So I'm glad we're getting these people. I'm glad we're deporting them. And I can tell you right now that we are actually seeing some major moves happening in Massachusetts right now, and they're basically ignoring some of what the state is trying to say they're allowed to do or not, because like it's getting out of control. And if that's being allowed to happen, then like those people should be held complicit. They're accomplices in those crimes, if you ask me, and I think they should go to jail. And I don't care. It's just true. And I know maybe I'm biased because I'm a dad, but I'm like I said, if that happened to one of my kids and the person got let out for free or on bail, and all they had to do was go home and stay at home, I might figure out where they live. Just throwing it out there. So, let's see here. Gregor Zamina says they can stay in their cindered house after lightning strikes all the doors and windows. That lightning, right? Yeah. And then we have, Neuromonic says those judges should be in jail. And that's what I think too. I really, truly do. And I can't even stand the fact that this is being allowed. As Americans, it's a disgrace. And we should be very upset about it. And like it's super similar to what's happening in Europe, right? In the UK and in Germany and in Switzerland and in Sweden, in these countries where they are bringing all these people in that aren't assimilating, aren't required to assimilate to any degree, aren't required to be part of the culture or part of the society, and then they're allowing them to get away with horrendous crimes, and they're not protecting their citizens and their people, and instead they're just promoting and affording these other people to be there. And it's very much what's happening there too. And so I don't care if you're in America or if you're in other countries. This is not acceptable, and I hope it's not happening anywhere near you, and I hope that we fix it, because it's appalling, okay? Tactical Noob 503 says, agreed, Magic 100. Well, I appreciate that. And Derek says these people cannot be fixed. Well, look, it's people who do those things, I agree. Sorry, okay? Now, Patriot 8x2 says judges have blood on their hands. I think so too. I really do. It's getting out of control. It's getting out of control. And also said Connor, Irish president soon. Yeah, I doubt that, but I do think that what he said recently is very similar to like what you should be concerned about here in the same regard, because like it's slowly getting worse in the same fashion. Now, I like being in the chat sometimes. You guys are amazing. Welcome to my life. They must sleep really well at night knowing they're sympathizing with complete monsters. Agreed. And that's the problem. So, right now, ICE law enforcement partners have arrested 370 alien offenders during enhanced operations in Massachusetts. And this is a report put out by ICE today. So, this is all happening very quickly, but they're doing it regardless, okay? U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and federal law enforcement partners apprehended 370 illegal aliens in Massachusetts during an enhanced targeted enforcement operation focused on transnational organized crime, gangs, and egregious illegal alien offenders from March 18th to March 23rd. Okay? The Commonwealth is a safer place for our residents to live and work because ICE and our federal law enforcement partners arrested hundreds of alien offenders and removed them from the streets of Massachusetts, said ICE Enforcement and Removal Operations Boston Acting Field Office Director Patricia H. Hyde. During the 6-day operation, ICE and federal law enforcement partners targeted egregious criminal alien offenders, including transnational criminal organizations, known to operate in and around Boston and throughout Massachusetts. These organizations include the notorious MS-13, Tren de Aragua, Trinitarios, and 18th Street gangs. So, they are going after the people they said they were going after. The hardened criminals are going first. That doesn't mean they're not going to go after other people down the road, because immigration status can make you criminal in nature. However, these are the people that need to go first, and it's a good thing they are, because the crimes they're committing are horrific, and Americans deserve better. That's all there is to it. Kevin Brown says, follow the money, and that's 100% true. And you know what? We're going to talk about that here in just a second, because the Swattings have been very problematic. And there is some money things there too, which are very interesting. We're going to talk about that because one of the major swatting victims happened to just put out a report about why this might be happening to them regarding their reporting on organizations like USAID. I don't know, but we're going to talk about it. And I also want to mention that this is a concern of mine for just being in the position I'm in. However, I have been proactive about it in the past, and I've gone to my sheriff's department, which would be my jurisdiction, and I told them, hey, here's what I do, here's my name, here's where I live, and if anyone ever tries this, I'd appreciate you talking to me first, because it's probably because of X, Y, or Z. And the first initial reaction was kind of funny, because they laughed a little bit, and they're like, what SWAT team, right? Because I live rural, right? But at the same time, that was me doing my due diligence to try to make that connection and establish the fact that, if there ever is a situation that maybe there's a good line of communication there that they could reach out to versus, having an altercation. So I would suggest you do the same if you were in the social media sphere. I know Prepper Now is here, being an excellent mod and also a great content creator who does a lot of reporting on controversial topics. And so that's something I would suggest to you as well. You might want to touch base with your local authorities just to give them a heads up. And I know Northern Girl Hobbies is here, and she's also in the content creation sphere. So these are all things that I would consider, and I appreciate you guys being here, and I appreciate you putting out the content you do. And it's something we have to do to protect ourselves, and it's unfortunate but true. So I want to bring that up. Now, Robert P., all volunteer SWAT team. Yeah. I mean, look, I live in such a small town in a small area that when I talk to the chief of police in my town, because I also have that connection for the same reasons, right? And just to have that community connection as well. We had a conversation where it was yeah, man, if there's ever a major incident, if you want to show up and help me out, please do, because we only have so many, hands, right? And it's yeah, I get that. And on a community level in a smaller town, that's a reasonable approach. You might have to help out, but in a large city or some of these more metropolitan areas, it's a much different situation, right? So let's go ahead and talk about the swatting. Because this is happening to conservatives all over the place. It's been happening for a long time, too. I know guys like Jeremy from the Quartering and Tim Pool and some of those bigger names that are out there in the conservative space have had multiple swatting issues over the years, which I know is just very public knowledge. But now it's happening to people who are prominently on X, who are putting out a lot of, pro-right-wing information and stuff, and people who have ties to the current administration, and especially Elon Musk and people of that nature. And they are getting swatted on a very frequent basis at this point. So it's something that we should talk about, because who knows who it's going to happen to next? And it's also something that, creates a disruption and a possibility of violence in your neighborhood if someone lives there. You don't know someone lives in your neighborhood that might be targeted by this, or even you, right? So I think it's still important to pay attention to. I just fell to the ground. Some of Trump and Musk's most public supporters targeted in a wave of swatting incidents. This is from the 20th. Larry Taunton was in bed around 1 a.m. on Sunday in his Alabama home when he noticed his dog, Ranger, getting worked up. His ears were up and moving like satellite dishes, Taunton told CNN in an interview. He noticed a flicker of light, and then the German Shepherd headed toward the front door. Taunton grabbed his gun and followed, leaving the lights off. A proper Alabamian, if you ask me. When he got to the kitchen, all he could see in the darkness was a figure in body armor holding a semi-automatic rifle trying to open his door. I'm thinking, if that man comes through my door, I'm going to light him up, Taunton said, because you're just thinking somebody's here to murder me and my wife. Reasonable thought process, right? It turned out to be 3 officers, guns drawn, Police told Taunton they received a call saying 3 men in hoodies were moving throughout the house, executing everybody. He had been swatted. Taunton, who has more than 177,000 followers on X and more than 140,000 YouTube subscribers, is one of at least a dozen influencers who have been swatted in the last 2 weeks. Swatting is a crime that involves making a bogus emergency call, claiming a horrific emergency is taking place, often a shooting, to draw police and first responders to a person's home. Look, I got 180,000 YouTube subscribers, so there's reasons why I've tried to protect myself about this kind of stuff. Even though I don't think I'm that controversial and I don't think I'm that inflammatory, I'm sure there's people that hate me regardless. So it is what it is. Almost all the influencers who have publicized their recent swattings are conservative supporters of President Donald Trump. Many have also interacted with top Trump advisor and donor Elon Musk on X over the years, with Musk either replying to them or reposting their X posts. The swattings are happening as Tesla owners and dealerships are experiencing a wave of vandalism and backlash against the company's billionaire CEO and his Doge. The FBI and the Department of Homeland Security say they're investigating the latest rash of swattings, which these influencers say could easily turn deadly. Okay? FBI Director Kash Patel wrote on X last week that the FBI is already taking action to investigate and hold those responsible accountable. This isn't about politics. Weaponizing law enforcement against any American is not only morally reprehensible, but also endangers lives, including those of our officers, he wrote. That will not be tolerated. Okay? Erin Durham lives in Western North Carolina with her husband, Matt Van Swol, and 3 children. Like Taunton, she was in bed early Sunday when she heard loud banging on her door at 1:30 in the morning. Durham had an idea of what might be happening. She and Van Swol had seen reports of other influencers getting swatted and warned their local police department that they might be a target. Van Swol, who says she's a former liberal, has become known alongside his wife as an activist. Who says he's a former liberal, has become known alongside his wife as an activist calling for more aid to North Carolina after Hurricane Helene. Van Swol, who has more than 198,000 followers on X, has often interacted with Musk on the social media platform. And so imagine being the guy who's trying to bring more awareness and observance to the disaster zone provided by Hurricane Helene, which, by the way, is still a disaster zone. Like, those things don't get fixed overnight. And now you're getting swatted because your views have changed politically based on your government's response to a disaster in your area. Like, that's insane. Like, this isn't some guy who is out there trying to, promote all these crazy, extreme right-wing ideologies. Like, this guy just felt that his government abandoned him during his time of need. Weird. But here we are, right? So this is all happening. All this swatting is a cheap form of terrorism. There it is again. Swatting is a form of harassment that's considered a crime at the federal and state levels. And it can be deadly. Yes, it can. Now, one thing I want to mention is that the illegal immigrant crimes that are being allowed to continue based on these jurisdictions, letting them loose with no bail or no restrictions or whatever it may be, that's another form of terrorism in my book. Because they're basically letting the wolves into the hen house and then just, rolling the dice. And that's that's akin to a military strategy of doing a siege. You lay a siege on a town and then you throw the bodies over of your enemies that are now infected with the bubonic plague, and you just hope that it works, right? You can see how this has a similar appeal to those who would like to see bad things happen. So this is happening, and there's many more examples of it. The one thing I do want to show you that I find very interesting is that Larry Taunton himself today came out with a lot of interesting information. And I just want to bring it to your attention because I found it to be eye-opening. And I think some of you will appreciate it, okay? Prepper Now says it's totally harassment, and I totally agree with you. Patriot 8x2 says, American flag on my house makes me an influencer. Possibly. I will say, I was driving around town the other day, and I noticed that one of the houses I drive by was flying an American flag and a Gadsden flag. And I thought to myself, I should probably just introduce myself to this house because there's probably a good chance that they, at least to some degree, would be a good networking asset. And at the very minimum, at least I know they are well armed, right? So these are things that I consider as I drive through my small town, but it is the truth, all right? Now, Watchman says, side note, Chinese are sending us red painted apples and contaminated dipped fruits. That's weird and interesting. And I might have to look into it because I didn't know about that, okay? Let's go ahead and jump back here in the chat for a quick second. Tactical Noob 503, we got your 6 magic, and I appreciate that. Thank you for that. Let's see. Viv B says the poll. They also wanted to vote for BLM riots, but could only choose one. I think that's reasonable, and I appreciate you bringing that up. And then we have Peter Birdsall says, we the people. That's right. Iran should be the top issue right now, the disintegration of Ukraine. Well, the Watchmen, I touch a lot of different topics on a regular basis. The problem is that geopolitically, going across the ocean right now, there's a lot of things that are about to happen, quite possibly, but we're not quite there yet. And so I'm trying to focus on what can affect people directly right now. And those things are big, but I mean, there's other guys out there like Canadian Prepper, for example, who's going to give all that information and do a much better analysis of it than I can do based on, my current understanding of the situation. But I also don't find it to be something that can affect me directly right this second. Whereas I see what's happening here domestically having the capacity to affect us, especially because like one of these charging station fires was set even here in North Dakota. Yes, it was Fargo, but still it just reminds us that like these things are happening right now in the country. And I think that the geopolitics of what's happening over there right now are important to pay attention to, but there's not enough for me to report on right now that I can find extremely relevant to your personal situation at this exact moment. I hope that clarifies why I'm like doing this right now instead. And I've tried to focus my live streams a little bit more because in the past I might have touched on Ukraine and then China and then illegal immigrant stuff and then, oh, by the way, Teslas, right? And that's great for like a big overview, but it doesn't let us really dive into any individual topic very much. And then I don't feel like I leave anyone with enough information. So I'm trying my best to focus things and to, I don't know, be a different voice in the room because there's so many people analyzing that current situation right now that I almost feel like I'm not quite as capable because I don't have the time that they spend into researching it all, if that makes sense. Super Dave covered it this morning, then red dipped apples in the chemical dye. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for letting me know that, Watchman. I appreciate it. And I'm not trying to be rude or anything at all. I hope you understand that too. I'm just trying to clarify and explain myself a little bit. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and talk about this interesting little thread. It's very strange, but I found it enlightening. Okay? So this is Larry, the terrorist, taunting, which is irony, of course, but now, about that USAID rabbit hole I've been promising you. Last week, my home was swatted, which is nothing less than attempted murder by proxy. But why? Let's try to connect some dots. Now, here's what's interesting. We just read a story from CNN where he was interviewed by them about this particular swatting. So we know that this all happened. We know that this is real. And we know that this person is clearly being targeted for apparent reasons. So the rest of the information I find very interesting because he's putting it out there himself now after this incident occurred. For several years, I've been investigating our border crisis, but way on the other side of the border. This took me all over South and Central America, primarily to cartel towns, Darien, and migrant camps. The Darien Gap, which is where a lot of the southern border crossers come from, especially the ones that are Chinese nationals. Everywhere I saw USAID signage, I saw they were working in collaboration with drug cartels to facilitate the largest human trafficking op in modern history right through our borders. This is his words, not mine. This is his reporting, not mine, but I am just reading it because I find it enlightening and interesting. They did it through a series of NGOs. Most prominent among them was the UN's OIM, or sometimes IOM, Organization for International Migration. You can see them on this sign together. Okay. On the very beaches where cartels load people on Zodiacs bound for Darien, you saw IOM signage. Your tax dollars at work to facilitate an invasion of America. People flown into the U.S. arrived with IOM swag. Remember the flow chart. U.S. taxpayers, USAID, IOM, OIM, funding of illegal immigration to flip red states to blue. From here, I just went to the World Economic Forum to crash their party and then on to Cairo just last month. Here's where things get dicey. While there, I decided to pay a visit to the USAID office. By this time, President Trump had issued his executive order mandating USAID begin closing shop. Entering their office, which was actually a fortress, I asked, "Are you complying with the president's order?" I sensed panic. Things went downhill from there and I hurriedly left. They were clearly not winding down operations and more telling, and I gotta pause this because things get weird on the platform, right? They reacted to my presence not like an arm of benevolence from the American people, but like an intelligence agency. A week later, I went back just to confirm a few impressions that we made no attempt to enter. Recognizing me, the car was stopped, and what followed was a 2.5-hour standoff with the Egyptian secret police, who continually tried to get me inside the USAID compound. I refused to move or be moved. It was very reminiscent of what Saudi Arabian government did to Jamal Khashoggi. They first accused me of terrorism, hence why my sarcastic moniker, and then of espionage. When they came to my hotel the next day, I had already slipped out of the country. Okay? The irony, of course, is that USAID is renowned for its nefarious dealings, as its African ambassador to the U.S. noted in an interview. Many USAID employees are, she says, operatives. This is reinforced by my experience. After my near miss with Egyptian secret police, I had a nagging feeling as I continually replayed events of that day over and over in my mind. Throughout the confrontation, they were taking their orders from someone inside the USAID compound. By the time I got to Prague, I was beginning to work it out. It wasn't an American calling the shots from inside USAID, as I had assumed. It was an Arab. Think about it. According to the U.S. Embassy website, Sean Jones, appointed by Samantha Power, runs USAID Cairo. If he gets a call from security informing him they have detained an American writer requesting an interview and wanting to know if they were complying with the EO to shut down, unless he's a complete idiot, he simply says, don't detain him, you'll create an international incident. Just tell him, sorry, we can't give an interview. Today, then and lie and say, yes, we are obeying the EO. Then I leave and there's no story. But that's not what happened, resulting in a Streisand effect. The person giving orders inside had clearly told them to find a way to get me inside the compound out of sight, where they could Khashoggi me. That's Arab shit. I've seen it before. And an Arab would have Egyptian secret police on speed dial. The crux of the matter was that I had been deemed a major threat. Why? Okay, because it isn't pallets of rice and canned goods inside USAID compound in Cairo. My intuition told me that the office, while technically run by Americans, was actually being run by Hamas or Hamas sympathizers who were running an anti-Israeli op, and they were afraid to know it. Or they are afraid I knew it. Moreover, I sensed Egypt was preparing for war. And this is from an article from a while back talking about how Israel claims a big Muslim country is preparing for war against it. I passed that information along to anyone who would listen. I came back home, and the next thing I know, my German Shepherd Rangers are alerting me to the fact that I was getting swatted, basically, okay? It takes a little imagination to deduce what I was thinking as they walked along my deck, pointing their semi-automatic rifles into my home. Then he's talking about the swatting itself. And an obvious question was, why was I swatted? Was it related to my exposure of USAID corruption in South America, Ukraine, and the Middle East? I will share my theory on tomorrow's episode of Ideas Have Consequences, posting here on YouTube at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. So look forward to that. I would check that out on X. I would also be sure to maybe follow him on YouTube if you want to hear more about that. But I find that to be very interesting, very enlightening, and pretty convincing. Because this is coming from a boots-on-the-ground source of information, a reporter who goes out of his way to report on these exact things, who's getting swatted, right? So even if that's not what happened, and even if it was just some, activist who just saw that he had interactions with people they didn't like or said things in a conservative way that they didn't like, and that's what happened, he's revealing a lot of information because of this experience that I find to be very revealing. So I think that you should know about it. And I think that it clearly demonstrates that there are a lot of issues happening right now that create the perfect powder keg. And that powder keg can go off at any moment if the right conditions are met. So, I do want to say real quick that Breitbart also reported on these swattings, and just wanted to show you that it's attempted murder, first off, which I agree with. And second off, it's happened to 15 plus conservatives in a week. So this is a targeted and organized operation. It could be the same person for all I know, but I just don't know for a fact if it is or not. So we can't say that, and it is possible that it's being financed and promoted by some of these shady organizations that I've reported on last week that are also behind the Tesla protests, that are also behind the district attorneys and these judges who are letting immigrants who are committing horrific crimes against children out on the streets without any punishment. Like, all of this is connected, and that's my intuition. But that's generally what's going on. And I think we all know that this is unacceptable. So I wanted to bring this information to you because I think it can have relevance to you directly in your life in the United States as an American. And that's what my goal is of these live streams, is to give you actionable information. So you know what to watch out for, you know what to be careful of, and you know what's happening right now that has the highest propensity of risk and danger for you. Okay? So let's see, we got great people in the chat. Prepper Now says, show me on the doll where the orange man touched you. Excellent. David Baise, would like to have a day on the Magic Prepper range with Magic Prepper and a few of my pew-pews. Yeah, I get that, man. I get that. It's not necessarily something I do publicly, unfortunately, just because of safety and security concerns, of course. But it is something that I do enjoy. And, you know, one day in the future here when things start to grow or become a little bit more flexible, I might host like a range day at a public range and might host a meet and greet somewhere or do a training seminar with some of my friends who are actual professional trainers. And like something like that is definitely possible, and I'd be willing to do that. The thing is I don't have the same backing as some of the bigger, you know, gun tubers or prepping channels out there. Like, you know, I don't have, you know, Canadian prepper money, and I definitely don't have, you know, like Garantham money or any of that kind of stuff. So like, you know, and I guess it's probably better I don't have Garantham money because look where that led to. But regardless, all I'm trying to say is I just don't have the resources to do those things on my own currently. And I have good partners and sponsors and stuff like that, but I can't, I'm still not in that position. It's not as luxurious as it might appear, but it is a good place to be. So I'm not complaining by any means. And like I said, the reason I'm offering that course is that I have a very great and blessed lifestyle, and I have a very great and blessed position of preparedness that I wouldn't have had unless I started this channel. And I realized I'm good at business, I'm good at teaching, and I've successfully ran a YouTube channel for 6 years that pays my bills. So I can actually teach other people how to do that. But I have to put it behind a paywall because the information is valuable and it requires people who are invested in the idea to participate, because I can't spend time with people who aren't willing to put in the extra work and energy required. So that's what it's for. And if you are into that and you want to be part of that, I would really appreciate it. Like 100%. I'll put that link in the live chat again. The link is also in the description. And this is brand new. It's the first course I've ever created, the first thing I've ever tried in this sphere. And it's something that I think, you know, rather than saying, hey, give me money every month and like be my friend or whatever, like this is something I can provide that has tangible value. And if you go on the website that I just shared, like it'll tell you everything right there. It'll even tell you like my level of success currently. It'll tell you what it is that I'm capable of teaching, what it is that I do right now. Like it has everything on there to try to give you a reason for why it's actually worth doing. And I would love to help people who are established. If you already do this, but you want to improve or you want to learn from me, please check it out and please consider it. And if you haven't even started something yet, please do it then if you are considering doing that, because it will get you started on the right track right off the bat, and you won't have to spend the years of mistakes that I made to figure out what I'm doing that I could have avoided. And honestly, I could be a lot more successful in a lot better position right now had I had something accessible like what I'm offering to you all. So 100% throw that out there. And by the way, if you are a Subscribestar member or a channel member, tonight the private live stream starts at 9:15. If you want to be part of that, hit the join button down below or join the Subscribestar for $5 a month to become a member. And I will have a special discount for those members specifically that I will be providing and announcing in the live chat tonight. So that way, if you want to be part of that, maybe joining the channel membership or the Subscribestar membership will actually save you money, even though it's like a monthly fee. If you're going to do the course, this will save you money. So like consider that as well, because I'm trying to give people benefits for supporting the channel and being part of this for a long time now. A lot of you have been around for a very long time, and I greatly appreciate that. So listen, I want you to be safe. I want you to be prepared, and I want you to understand that even if we don't agree politically, my goal is to help Americans be better prepared and stay safe and stay alive and secure this country and its sovereignty for the next generation. I have children. I want those children to grow up in America. I want them to have a safe and a secure lifestyle. I want them to be comfortable. And I want them to have their own families because they can afford to, and they can safely have children that they don't have to concern themselves with in the sense of whether or not they're going to be safe with if they're at school or if they're, you know, out and about at like an amusement park or if they go to church or whatever it might be. Like, I just want their future to be good. And I think that's what we prepare for, right? The future is unknown, so therefore we want it to be better. And I need my children to have a good future. And I don't prep because I'm a nihilist. I don't think everything's going to fall apart tomorrow, and that's why I prepare. I prepare because I am optimistic, but I also understand the reality of human nature, and that things can fall apart very quickly. But even in that scenario, I'm going to be optimistic because I've done the work and put the effort and time in to have redundancies in place so that my family can suffer less throughout that process. And that's the goal, man. Like, that's where it's at, right? So let's get on the same page and all be part of that, right? You guys are amazing. Private live stream starts soon. You know what to do if you want to be part of that. Make sure you guys hit subscribe, hit the bell so you'll actually get these notifications. If you need anything else from me, I'll go to magicprepper.com. It's always a great resource for a lot of other stuff, including discount codes and all types of things. And besides that, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.